When Chris Bell, the production manager of the Branchage Film Festival, first contacted me, he suggested that we might like to do something for the finale with forts and oban. The theme of this year's festival is make your own island, so in keeping with that theme we thought we'd take it rather literally and make our own island with projection mapping technology. QED has projected onto many buildings over the years, but nothing like this. I mean, this is truly a completely unique challenge.
This job's been very challenging from the beginning, mainly the location of the fort actually in the sea. The tide here comes in and out, and it only gives us a 4-hour window to essentially be able to go out and work on the fort.
We're sitting over at the yacht club, and the first technical challenge we had to overcome was that we have to communicate with the servers on the yacht club to the servers on the fort, and the only way this can be done is by laying a fibre line. So we've actually laid an 8-core single mode fibre. This has to be run along the causeway, and we've had to put anchor bolts in. But we have to meet the heritage needs to make sure we don't damage the causeway. Literally 3-4 months of planning just on the fibre installation alone.
We had to install 1 kilometre length of fibre on this job, and to be honest, everyone since the beginning has said at some point it'll never work. And it's been quite satisfying for everyone, and especially the crew, the guys who laid it, to have got that fibre in. It's been stable, it's been rock solid, and it's just worked. And I think that's been a real achievement, and I think the guys feel really good about that. The challenges on this have kept coming thick and fast, and there are also some reasonable access issues with the island itself. The roads are all very narrow. Getting down to the fort here with the truck's very difficult. So for the crew perspective, we've had to kind of work the logistics in, both around the tide and being able to get access, which has meant very strange working hours, working late, working when there aren't people or cars around. But I think generally the crew have handled that well. I think there's a good team vibe going on with everyone. Everyone appreciates the challenge, and what we're doing here has probably never really been attempted on this scale before.
The unique thing about this particular site is that you can't actually view it from one single position. So everyone's going to be watching the same show, but they'll all have a completely different experience. Therefore, for creating content for something like this is probably just as challenging as actually delivering the projection onto the fort. So literally every single piece of animation is custom designed for each viewing angle on the fort.
A lot of the projection mapping projects we do deal with single perspective, which is when the audience are really looking at something from one viewpoint. What was quite unique about this job is we had to deal with the main viewpoint here, which is where the Radiophonic Workshop are going to be based, but also the fact that people will also be viewing the fort from the end of the pier over there, and also they're opening up the water for people who have boats or access to a boat to be able to sail around the fort and really kind of see it in its full 3D-ness. So we had to decide fairly early on whether we were going to map the content in a way that it was absolutely perfect for the people at the yacht club here, or whether we had to compromise on that slightly and wrap the entire structure so that it made sense for anyone who was viewing it from any position. And that just made the UV mapping a lot more complicated and a lot more difficult, but I think the end result, we're really happy with the way the content flows around it, and it really does suit everyone who's viewing it. And as I said, most buildings or most 3D mappings we deal with a single perspective, which are much easier when people are just looking at it from one direction. So that was the next sort of big challenge.
To create this effect, we're using 20 Christie and Panasonic 20,000 lumen projectors, 6 D3 media servers, 2 32 by 32 DVI lightware matrix switches, 2 QED 15-channel DVI fibre racks, all linked together by kilometres and kilometres of fibre optic cabling.
Physically trying to hit the structure with projection took quite a bit of thought and planning, because it's not easy, especially when you're dealing with the distances that we have here and the limited areas of which we can actually physically place a projector to hit the fort.
Paul from QED got in contact with us a number of months ago, basically saying that they had this quite crazy project potentially going to happen, and would we be interested in creating all the content for it. And we previously worked with QED really successfully in Derry at the Lumiere Festival last year, and anyway, he sent us through this picture of the fort, and I think we all initially just were like, this is absolutely crazy, but of course we want to be involved. When we received the template from the guys at QED, I think we just stood, the other three of us at Novak, and just looked at it in a slight bit of disbelief and think, how are we going to deal with this,
We set about designing the 30-minute show, working with Adam Finley and his creatives at Novak Collective, and with the legendary Radiophonic Workshop, who composed a score to go with the animations.
We're all big fans of them and big electronic music fans, so getting to work with them, meet them, and then sort of getting to receive music from them on a regular basis over the production time was just an absolute joy.
I think what ought to be said is, first of all, we've never set up our gear in such a beautiful spot. I've taken various photographs of it with the bay in the distance, and this has got to be a one-off. It's a very unique project all round, and I think really the interesting thing for us is it sort of brings us full circle to what we were all individually used to doing in the BBC, which was writing to picture. We've since actually gone out on the road, and we've been doing gigs and concerts around the country in sort of band on the stage type form. This has actually brought it all full circle, and we've written music to picture, which of course are ending up as projections, and we're also playing it live, so everything's come together.
We do music for media and film and installations anyway, so it's not that much different. What is different is the scale of this and trying to pitch the scale right. Technically, obviously, we've had to get all our gear here and up onto a roof on a yacht club in Jersey, so that's been quite a challenge, more for our road crew than for us. Musically, and as far as the sound is concerned, we had a preliminary meeting with Adam from Novak a few weeks ago where we talked through the storyboard and the shape of it. And I was asking lots of questions and not really understanding the answers, so I did fly out here for a night just to have a look at this, because until you actually sit here, stand here, see the scale of this, you don't quite realise what you're up against. And so I was able to go back, and then we tailor the mix and the music and what we're writing very much for the location. I think it's very important if you're going to do something like this for a specific location, a location-specific show, that you do tailor it for the surroundings. So that's hopefully what we've done. And then it was a question of mad writing for about 3 weeks, all of us, and we tend to sort of carve things up between us and write separately and then bring it all together and put it all together. So that's been fun, but that's the way we normally work, so it's just adapting again to the scale and the size of the project.
When you're writing a piece of music, you would tend to block it out, so you're doing the bigger junctions and the bigger things first. Well, that's exactly the same as they were doing at Novak. They were actually doing visually the bigger things first, and so the two went in tandem, and we've gradually come together. But I have to admit, I'm really longing to see what the final result is. I've got a problem here because I'm going to have to look at the music in one direction and look at the fort in another. So we'll see what happens.
Our system basically consists of all our synthesizers, which we will be playing live. We don't cheat. So we have all the analog synthesizers, vintage analog synthesizers, and Macintosh computers. We have 2 Macintosh computers through which we put everything to hold it all together. We have a mixing desk here which I mix everything through. And then we basically send 16 channels down cables to the mixing desk, which is on the other side of the car park. And we have our mixing lady Zoe, who'll be down there later, and she'll be making sure the stereo mix is fine, not just for the crowd here, and there are 2 enormous speaker stacks down in the car park for the audience that are here, but also of course it's going out on the radio, so there'll be stereo mix going out on FM radio. And the idea is, I mean, one of the joys of this show is that not only will there be people here in the open air listening to the music and watching that fantastic fort over there with all the pictures, all the animations on, but then over the other side of the bay there's going to be another beach full of people with stereo system which will be listening off the FM radio. And then all around this bay, I mean, it's just extraordinary. If you see around here, anybody up on the hill or in any seafront property will be able to see the fort, and if they turn their radio on, they'll be able to enjoy the show as well. So I mean, that's one of the extraordinary things about this. You don't actually have to be here. You can be anywhere in this extraordinary expanse of space, and you'll be able to enjoy the show. So I mean, it is on a scale beyond anything I think any of us have done before.
It's just nice to play out the final scene synchronised with the live band here. I think it will be a very, very good evening, and I think it's probably something that will go down in the history here of something that's happened for a very long time, and hopefully it will be talked about for many years.
They've been very welcoming. It's been really, really nice here, actually. It's been to think this is work. It's really great.
Our gear looks quite impressive all set up here, but I have to say the QED guys, I went over to the island, and what they've done is just extraordinary. I mean, a kilometre of cable taking all the data over there, and then the servers and more ridiculously pricey gear than you could shake a stick at, worrying the hell out of me if it was mine. But I mean, it's just so impressive. This whole technical feat of putting all this together and making it work is just, you can't say no to something like this.